The maintenance tunnels beneath Helion Prime smelled of oil, rust, and the faint tang of ozone. Elior moved cautiously, the cleaning pod now a fragile sanctuary for the small creature he had rescued. He had given her a name, one he had whispered in the shadows, Lyra. The syllables felt right, light and delicate, as if naming her could somehow anchor her to life. She stirred within the blanket as he wheeled the pod along the narrow corridor. Her small hands reached out, brushing the edge of the pod with curiosity. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice a fragile echo of humanity, yet tinged with something alien. "Somewhere safe," Elior said softly, glancing over his shoulder. "The Empire won't forgive you being alive. Not if they find out." Lyra's eyes widened. I. She struggled, the words tumbling in confusion. Elior understood. She had been designed to follow commands, to obey, to serve as a weapon. Now she was learning to feel, and the flood of uncertainty terrified her. He stopped at a junction and crouched beside the pod. "Listen," he said, voice calm but firm. "No one else can know about you. Not the scientists. Not the drones. Not anyone. Can you do that?" She nodded slowly. "I try." "Good. That's all we can do for now." The tunnels stretched like veins beneath the city. Elior led her to a storage alcove long abandoned, where broken drones and discarded machines created a labyrinthine nest. Here he could work, shielded from surveillance, and perhaps understand what they had made. He set Lyra on a pile of soft rags. She blinked at him, her eyes glowing faintly, reflecting the dim emergency lighting. "Elior, what am I?" He hesitated. Truth could be dangerous, but lies even more so. "You were something the Empire wanted to control," he said carefully. "But you're not that anymore. You're alive, and that's what matters." Her gaze lingered on him, searching for meaning. "Control, kill, why did you save me?" He swallowed hard, kneeling beside her. "Because no one else would. Because some things are worth more than obedience." Lyra reached for his hand, small and trembling. Elior gripped her fingers tightly, marveling at the warmth she offered. A human warmth, fragile, defiant, alive. Over the next days, Elior studied her in secret. She was more than a machine, more than a weapon. Her neural structure adapted rapidly. She mimicked his movements, learned his speech, even began to ask questions about the world outside the tunnels. "Why do humans clean?" she asked one evening, her voice curious and tentative. Elior chuckled softly. "Because someone has to. Because otherwise, everything falls apart." He paused. "And sometimes, cleaning teaches you something about yourself." Lyra tilted her head, processing the words. I want to learn everything." He smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and fear. "You'll have to be careful. The Empire doesn't tolerate learning like that. Knowledge can be dangerous, Lyra." It was during one of these quiet moments that Elior realized the first signs of her latent power. A droplet of coolant had spilled near the pod, and without touching it, she recoiled, a pulse of energy rippling from her body. The droplet evaporated instantly, vapor rising into the air. Elior's eyes widened. "You did that on purpose?" Lyra shook her head, fear in her gaze. "I didn't mean to." "You're stronger than you know," he said softly. "And that strength, it could save you, or it could destroy you." The warning came too late. The Empire's watchful eye was always present, even in the tunnels. One evening, a Zarathian maintenance assistant, loyal to the research division, noticed anomalies in the energy readings of Section 12. Curiosity brought him closer, following the faint trail of life that Lyra emitted. He found the alcove. Elior sensed the presence first, a shadow moving among the broken machines. He rose, blocking the entrance. "Who's there?" The assistant froze, recognizing the human. "I was checking for power fluctuations." "Power fluctuations," Elior repeated, voice low, controlled. "And what did you see?" The Zarathian's gaze flickered toward the pod, his yellow eyes narrowing. "Nothing." Elior's heart pounded. "Nothing." he repeated, steadying his voice. Go back. Forget this place exists. The assistant hesitated, then backed away, leaving Elior's secret intact, for now. But the warning was clear. Vorex Talkar would learn of the irregularity. He always did. And then it happened. One afternoon, while Elior and Lyra were working on repairing a broken bioregulator, alarms blared. Red light painted the alcove as drones materialized in the doorway. Lyra's eyes widened. They found us! Elior grabbed her hand. Stay calm. Remember what I taught you. Don't fight unless you have to. Vorex Talkar entered, towering and menacing. His emerald scales shimmered in the alarm's light. Janitor, he said, voice cold as ice. You have violated every law the Empire holds dear. Tell me, where is it? Elior's pulse raced, but he refused to give himself away. I do not know, honored arch-scientist, he said, bowing slightly. Nothing but machinery and dust. Vorex's gaze swept the alcove, scanning. He paused, as if sensing a pulse beneath the pile of rags. His golden eyes narrowed. Compassion is contamination, he said softly, almost to himself. And contamination must be eradicated. Lyra trembled beside him. For the first time, Elior saw fear sharpen into something else, instinct. A low hum emanated from her body. The drones froze, their circuits sparking. Red warning lights flickered and died. Vorex's eyes widened in disbelief. What is happening? Lyra didn't answer. She extended her hands, a pulse of energy rippling outward. Every electronic device in the alcove malfunctioned. Drones sparked and fell. Lights blinked erratically. Vorex took a cautious step back. Elior whispered, It's okay, stay with me. You can control it. She shook, tears in her eyes. I didn't want to hurt them. You won't, he assured her. We'll be careful. In the chaos, Elior grabbed her again, wrapping the pod's blanket tightly around her. Together, they slipped through a side corridor, winding through tunnels that led deep beneath Helion Prime. The city above shimmered with light, oblivious to the fugitives below. Finally, they reached a small, abandoned maintenance chamber, one that had not been used in decades. The smell of rust and oil greeted them like an old friend. Elior set the pod down and knelt beside her. You're safe for now, he said. Lyra looked up, exhausted. Why are you helping me? He paused, gazing into her luminous eyes. Because even in a universe that doesn't care, someone has to. Because kindness can be stronger than fear. She nodded, comprehension dawning slowly. And in that quiet, forgotten chamber beneath the Empire, a fragile trust was forged. Above them, the Empire's vast network hummed and watched. Somewhere, in the cold and sterile corridors, Vorex Talkar stared at his monitors, understanding only part of what had occurred. So, the janitor thinks himself a savior, he murmured, eyes narrowing. And beneath Helion Prime, Elior Kane held the child close, realizing that the small act of mercy that had started as instinct might be the first spark of something that could change everything. For the first time, he allowed himself to hope. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 3, completing the story in the same in-depth, 1,000-word style, building to the climax and HFY resolution? The air inside the Imperial Biotechnical Complex always smelled of sterilized death. Bleach, ozone, and something faintly metallic, like the scent of blood hidden behind perfection. Elior Kane moved through that silence as though invisible, his mop gliding across the white floor until it gleamed. He was good at this. Too good. No one looked twice at a janitor. That was his armor. High above, transparent walls revealed scientists floating in anti-gravity chambers, their scaled Zarathian bodies coiled elegantly around control spheres. They spoke in clipped, mechanical tones as they shaped life from machinery. Below them, Elior worked quietly in the reflection of their genius, the only human in a kilometer radius. He kept his head down. Always down. Human, came the familiar rasp behind him. Supervisor Rectile, gray-scaled, with eyes like molten glass, hovered in the corridor. Section 12 needs decontamination. And hurry. We've had an incident. Elia nodded, silent. The Zarathian lingered long enough to sneer before turning away, the mechanical hum of his grav boots fading into the distance. An incident. That usually meant something had gone wrong, horribly wrong, with an experiment the Empire didn't want anyone to know existed. Elia pushed his cleaning pod forward, pretending not to notice the faint tremor in his hands. He told himself he was used to this. Used to the way things screamed behind sealed doors. But he wasn't. Not really. He entered Section 12 through a decontamination gate that hissed like a living thing. The chamber beyond was in chaos, glass shattered, liquid pooling on the floor in glowing rivulets. Alarms pulsed with dim red light, painting everything in shades of warning. Behind the broken containment glass lay something moving. Elia froze. It was small, tangled in tubes, and covered in translucent skin where silver veins pulsed faintly. Its breathing was shallow, ragged, desperate. Above it hung a sign etched in alien script. He recognized only one word from the scattered translations he'd memorized over the years: termination. He swallowed hard. His orders were clear. Clean up, sterilize, report nothing. He moved closer anyway. The creature turned its head slightly, and for a fraction of a second, its face came into view, fragile, almost human. It blinked up at him with pale, trembling eyes and whispered something through its damaged throat. Cold. The word shattered him. Elia stared down at the mop in his hand, then at the emergency incinerator unit across the room. He was supposed to sweep it in, press a button, and walk away. Pretend he'd never seen a thing. Pretend he hadn't heard that voice. The Empire built obedience into survival. Disobedience wasn't punished, it was erased. He stood there for what felt like a lifetime, the alarms pulsing like a heartbeat. Then he exhaled and muttered under his breath, "To hell with it." He knelt beside the dying thing. "You're not dying here," he said softly, though he wasn't sure why he said it, or to whom. His hands trembled as he tore the sterile blanket from his cleaning pod and wrapped it around the creature. It felt light, like carrying an echo. He wiped away the green biogel from its skin, revealing faint human features, cheekbones, eyelids, and delicate fingers that twitched at his touch. "Easy," he whispered, adjusting the small air regulator from his tool belt to feed it oxygen. The creature's chest rose, slightly steadier. From the corridor outside, heavy boots approached, the sound of authority moving with purpose. Elia's heart pounded. He shoved the body into his cleaning pod, layering it beneath waste cloth and empty containers. By the time the door slid open, he was already sweeping. Arch-Scientist Vorex Talkar entered, tall, emerald scales shimmering under the emergency lights. His presence seemed to darken the air itself. "Containment failure?" His voice was cold, analytical. He glanced once at the shattered tank, then at Elia. "You cleaned the remains?" Elia bowed slightly. "Yes, honored Arch-Scientist." Vorex tilted his head. "And you saw nothing that lived?" "No, sir. Only waste." For a tense moment, Vorex studied him, those golden eyes searching for weakness. Then he waved dismissively. "Dispose of it properly. The experiment was defective. Compassion, human, is contamination." "Yes, sir." The doors sealed behind him. Elia exhaled so hard it hurt. He waited for the sound of boots to vanish before wheeling his cleaning pod into the maintenance corridor, the hidden arteries of the complex that no one but janitors ever used. The lights here flickered weakly. Machinery dripped condensation. "Cold," came the faint whisper again. He stopped, hands trembling. Carefully, he lifted the blanket. The creature, no, the child, looked up at him. Eyes too large for its face, irises glowing faintly blue. Elia felt something pull at him, not pity, but recognition. A reflection of everything crushed out of his kind: fear, wonder, innocence. "Stay quiet," he murmured. "They'll kill you if they find you." He carried the pod deeper into the tunnels until he reached an old storage alcove filled with obsolete cleaning drones. It smelled of rust and oil, safe, forgotten. He set the child down on a stack of rags and knelt. Let's see what they did to you, he whispered, checking the small tubes attached to her back. Bio-nanites, regulation implants, technologies he only half understood. But he could repair. He'd always been good with machines. He rerouted a damaged tube with trembling fingers, connecting it to a portable power cell from his toolkit. The child's breathing steadied. She opened her eyes again, glassy and uncertain. Who are you? Elier, he said. I clean things. She blinked. Clean things? He smiled faintly. Yeah. The messes others make. Her gaze drifted upward, confused but calm. Then, as though it was the most natural thing in the world, she said, Thank you? He froze. Those two words carried something no lab experiment should possess: sincerity. Don't thank me, he muttered, adjusting the power cell again. Just stay alive. For the first time in years, he felt his chest ache with something he'd forgotten existed: purpose. A low hum rolled through the walls. Somewhere above, surveillance systems rebooted. Elier stiffened, realizing the lab's networks were already sweeping for anomalies. He covered the child again and whispered, Stay silent. I'll be back soon. As he slipped into the corridor, he glanced once over his shoulder. Her eyes followed him, glowing softly in the dim light. Back in the main hall, he resumed cleaning as if nothing had happened. Drones floated past him, scanning, questioning. No alarms yet. He finished his shift without speaking, returned his pod, and walked home through the worker tunnels beneath the city's radiant skyline. Outside, Helion Prime glittered like a god's jewel, but for the humans below, it was only a cage wrapped in light. That night, Elier lay awake in his small metal bunk, staring at the flickering ceiling vent. He had broken the Empire's first law, not by fighting, but by feeling. And somewhere deep within the heart of that vast machine, a small creature with a human voice breathed because of him. Tomorrow, he told himself, he'd figure out what to do. But tonight, he simply closed his eyes and listened to the silence, knowing it would never sound the same again. The tunnels beneath Helion Prime were silent, save for the occasional drip of condensation and the faint hum of failing machinery. Elier moved quickly, carrying Lyra's pod, her small hand brushing his wrist as if seeking reassurance. Each step was calculated, each turn deliberate. The city above glittered with indifferent light, oblivious to the fragile life fleeing below. We have to go deeper, he whispered, voice low. The surveillance drones can't reach the underworks past this point. Lyra nodded, still pale but alert. Elier, what will happen if they catch me? He hesitated, staring into the dim light reflecting from her glowing eyes. Then they'll take you. And the world will lose something it doesn't even understand yet. But I won't let that happen. 4 days they had hidden, surviving on scraps scavenged from the tunnels. Elier had rigged a small generator to keep Lyra stable, carefully bypassing the Empire's energy grid to avoid detection. In this fragile cocoon, she had begun to understand herself, the depth of her cognition, the breadth of her emotions. And he had begun to understand her. You're learning, he said quietly one night, watching her examine a damaged maintenance drone. Faster than I could have imagined. Lyra's small hands hovered over the circuits. I want to learn everything. About humans. About the Empire. About everything. Elier smiled faintly. Knowledge is dangerous here. You need to be careful. Some things, once known, can destroy more than you realize. I can handle it, she said, determination creeping into her voice. He looked at her and wondered if she truly understood. Not just the danger, but the weight of responsibility. A weapon. A child. Something neither fully human nor fully machine, yet carrying the potential to reshape the galaxy. Then, the warning came, subtle, almost imperceptible. Energy readings from Section 12 had spiked. Someone was tracking her. They know we're here, Elier said, tightening his grip on her hand. Vorex won't stop until he finds you. Lyra's eyes widened. Then we fight? No, Elier said firmly. We survive. And sometimes, surviving means being smarter than your enemy. They moved through hidden maintenance shafts, taking paths few humans had ever seen. Above, Vorex Talkar's presence loomed like a shadow. The arch-scientist had already mobilized drones, scouring every sector with ruthless precision. His mind worked like a predator, analyzing, predicting, calculating. And yet, he underestimated what he had always dismissed: the unpredictable, defiant spark of humanity. Finally, Elia reached an abandoned communication chamber, a relic from a century-old expansion project. Here, the central array still had enough power to connect to the Empire's core network, a chance, perhaps the only one, to turn Lyra's latent abilities into something meaningful. "We can do this here," Elia whispered. "I think you can use the array to reach the central systems. But you have to focus carefully. You can't destroy anything. Just change it. Change them." Lyra looked at him, confusion and fear etched into her face. "Change them? How?" Elia kneeled, brushing a strand of hair from her glowing eyes. "By showing them what they've lost. Compassion. Feeling. The things that make life worth saving. You can reach the Empire where logic and cruelty rule. You can make them human again." Her small hands trembled as she touched the controls. Lights flickered across her veins, the faint glow intensifying. A pulse emanated from her, spreading through the old circuits. Elia held his breath. This was the culmination of everything: risk, fear, hope. Above, the tunnel shook as Vorex arrived in person, flanked by security drones. His golden eyes scanned the chamber. "There," he hissed, voice sharp with anger. "Human. Give me the child." Elia stepped forward, protective. "You won't take her. Not anymore." Vorex's scales shimmered with rage. "Do you understand what you've done? You're meddling with forces you cannot control." Lyra's glow intensified. The energy she had learned to harness now extended outward, not as a weapon, but as a conduit. She had tapped into the Empire's neural network, not to dominate, but to transmit. Emotion rippled through the system: sorrow, empathy, doubt, and longing. The drones faltered. Systems sparked, alarms blinked. The cold, calculated heart of the Empire began to pulse with something it had long forgotten. Vorex's gaze widened as he felt it, a flood of emotions that logic could not suppress. Guilt, regret, fear, and, strangely, hope. "Lyra," Elia whispered. "Focus. Show them the choice they've ignored. Let them see themselves." Her eyes shimmered, reflecting every star in the distant galaxy. A wave of energy surged, not destructive, but transformative. Across Helion Prime and the connected worlds, Zarathians froze mid-task, overwhelmed by feelings alien to them. Decisions were reconsidered, cruelty faltered under the weight of empathy. Even soldiers paused, and humans in servitude felt, for the first time, that they mattered. Vorex fell to his knees, disbelief cracking the veneer of his arrogance. "Impossible! This was not the design." Elia approached him slowly, calm in the chaos. "It wasn't meant to be your weapon. It was meant to live. To teach. And sometimes, arch-scientist, that's more powerful than any machine you could create." Lyra's pulse slowed. Exhaustion crept into her small frame. "Elia, I can't hold it." He lifted her gently, whispering, "It's okay. You've done enough. You've given them a chance to feel." In the moments that followed, the central array overloaded. Lyra's body glowed brighter, then dissipated into a cascade of light. She looked at Elia one last time. "Thank you, for letting me be alive." Elia held her until the glow faded completely. Silence descended on the chamber, heavy but not empty. Outside, the Empire trembled with the first taste of compassion it had ever known. Vorex lay on the floor, staring at the scorched circuits and dead drones, his mind fractured by something he could not quantify. Elia's words echoed in his thoughts: sometimes, mercy is stronger than fear. Weeks passed. Helion Prime changed, quietly at first. Small acts of kindness spread among humans and Zarathians alike. Orders softened, cruelty paused. Whispers of empathy traveled through corridors that had never known warmth. Elior resumed his work as a janitor, moving unnoticed among the streets and tunnels, carrying only the memory of the small life he had saved. In the central plaza, a statue was erected, a man with a mop, holding a glowing child, frozen in the moment of quiet defiance. A plaque read, "He cleaned the filth of cruelty with kindness." Elior stood before it one evening alone. A breeze swept across the plaza, carrying the scent of ozone and metal, but it no longer smelled like death. It smelled like possibility. He whispered, almost to himself, "Even the smallest hand can tip the balance of the stars." Somewhere deep in the galaxy, across countless worlds, the echo of Lyra's pulse lingered, a reminder that the fragile, defiant spark of humanity could illuminate even the coldest heart. And in that quiet, Elior Kane finally allowed himself to hope. "If you want, I can now compile all 3 chapters into a polished, continuous HFY sci-fi story of about 3,000 words, seamless prose, ready for reading or submission. This would smooth transitions, maintain pacing, and fully capture the emotional depth of Elior and Lyra's journey. Do you want me to do that next?"